The video you're about to watch is part 2 of a 3-part series. If you haven't already seen part 1, you might want to do that now. And when you're done, make sure to go ahead and click on part 3. This is my monstera Thai constellation creme brulee, and there has been some debate. I feel like there's been debate about everything in the world. Some people don't think that creme brulee is a real thing. I kind of think it is. I've done a small amount of research, which is mostly just chatting with people who are a lot more educated on this topic. But the Cliff Notes version is that, as you know, all monstera Thai constellation are the result of TC, tissue culture. But there was one specimen that really stood out with having extremely high variegation on every single leaf. It wasn't just like a normal Thai that threw one highly variegated leaf. Every single leaf was highly variegated. Every cutting of that plant presented the same traits, but when they tried to put that plant back through tissue culture, the results did not carry through. They all looked like regular Thai. And so this is what I've learned, and it does kind of make sense to me that true monstera Thai constellation do have to be vegetative cuttings of that original that presented with high variegation. I've been told that's what mine is. I don't have a certificate or anything, but the traits do match up, every single leaf being extremely highly variegated, and it's just an outstanding plant. It's a very fast grower. I've heard people talk about the differences also in just the tenacity of the roots, that a creme brulee is stronger than other Thai. I'm not really sure if I can speak on that. I can say that this one is very strong, very fast, easy to grow and propagate. The roots are super healthy and strong here in Lekka. I have several monstera to show you today or tomorrow, depending on when I finish filming this. I think all my monstera, except for 1 or 2, are in Lekka still, because they really love it. But here is monstera Thai constellation and all its drama, but to me it was worth every penny. I didn't pay anything obscene. I think I got this plant in a trade. I traded somebody, what was it? Because I know you're probably curious. I had a philodendron variegated golden dragon. I imported 2 of them in the same month because I couldn't decide which one I liked best. I made myself get rid of one, and there was somebody who had a single leaf cutting of this, which they were willing to trade and also pay me cash on top of that for my golden dragon. And it's funny now because I think the value of golden dragon has fallen, but the value of this has stayed the same. So it's kind of crazy to describe a trade like that where I got this plant plus a couple $100. But that's what happened, and I love this plant. I didn't pay a cent for it, I guess, and it has not stopped impressing. Okay, I'm taking you down because I've got some scindapsus back here that I'm not able to move. This is Jade Satin Scindapsus, doing really well. This is Silver Cloud Scindapsus, which was climbing up the wall in my previous plant room, and I didn't like the way it started to look as a climber, so I'm letting this one trail. Over here, we can see my Scindapsus Black Mamba is just climbing up the walls, taking names, calling this room her own. She actually goes all the way down to my bottom shelf. That is Scindapsus Black Mamba right there. Is she climbing up a plank over here? Oh yeah, she is. Okay. And then we've got a couple other miscellaneous vining things over here that I don't know if I want to take out to show you. We have Monstera lechleriana, variegated. I've taken some cuttings. The only cuttings of Scindapsus I've kept along. I keep it kind of down here. I don't really like looking at it. This is Scindapsus platinum. I think that's all I have left of the plant because it was overwhelming me. So I just wanted to start again with cuttings. This is Scindapsus trebui dark form. And the mother plant for that is over here, looking average. You can tell that even though I do love scindapsus, they really have kind of lost my affection. They've lost my attention. Here are some cuttings of that jade satin. There are some cuttings back there. Looks like one cutting of silver cloud and a cutting of something else called silver Malaysian. That is this one. I don't really know so much about what that one is, but it was really cute and I really liked it. Here's a really big, beautiful, and bushy scindapsus silver lady. And I do have a few scindapsus I'll show you here, and then I think we'll be finished with scindapsus for the day. This is scindapsus mayari, which is like a variegated, not variegated exotica, but it's just kind of like, it's this and it variegated. I don't really know what the exact ID is, but it's called scindapsus mayari when it's variegated. It's really pretty, but I only ended up with like, I think I got this as a 2-leaf cutting. It was maybe these 2 leaves right here at the bottom. I think it gave me this leaf in my care, which I was very happy with. And then after this, it gave me nothing but all white. So I cut that off. And 2 growth points activated after that, and they have been all white. Isn't that exciting? But you know, the funny thing is that there's like a little bit of green in every single white leaf, and none of them are crisping and none of them are dying. And although the plant is now very slow, it's still okay. So I don't really know what I'm gonna do about it. I'm thankful that the value of this plant has dropped significantly, because if I wanted to buy a better Mayari, I could probably do it today with the money that I just have in my account. So I might do that just because this isn't really satisfying me. But I think it's a cool plant, and it was interesting enough to take out and show it to you. Now this one is variegated exotica. When I bought this plant, you guys, I'm pretty sure I even had this and showed it to you in my 2023 plant tour. And the original leaves, if I could even find them, were probably like, it looked like this. And I said, this was sold to me as variegated exotica, and I don't see any variegation. I don't know if I got ripped off. And let me tell you what happened. I moved it into this room in the spring, and in the summer it got so hot in here that I started getting pure white leaves. This one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one. And then it finally started to cool down, and then I got this leaf. And now temperatures are kind of back to normal, and we are back to all green. It's kind of hard to see the process because I've got it all wrapped up in here. I was attempting to root some of the nodes back into the pot. But, so we figured out that this is essentially like the Florida ghost of scindapsus. If you don't give it heat or light, it's probably not going to give you variegation. But you give it heat and it's like, bam, here I am, I'm ready to show off. And so this to me is such an outstanding plant because just look at it. It is just so pretty. Just this blend of like white and green and a little bit of mint. Where's that one minty leaf? Here it is. Look at it again. How pretty is that? And I can't really tell you why, but it would appear that the newest leaf is going to be all white again. I don't know, maybe it's responding to me having turned on the space heater over the last 3 weeks. I'm not sure if that would have made such a big difference, but beautiful, beautiful plant and super, super cool, isn't it? Here is a Rhaphidophora tetrasperma variegated. I've got a few yellow leaves. I will shamelessly just pluck off right here and toss them down. This one, such a conversation, right? It used to be very expensive, and unfortunately, I finally pulled the trigger to buy this plant right before the value dropped. I have sold a few cuttings, which I think did put a small dent into the price I originally paid for the plant. but then I think people just kind of stopped caring about it. I don't know. So I've kind of left the plant to its own devices. It's got a slightly weird growth pattern, but the way that it is just propped up in the corner of my shelves, it's kind of growing according to that. But she's very happy. I mean, it's a beautiful plant. I'm definitely not getting rid of it by any means. But I will say I'm a bit disappointed that I was not able to kind of make back my expense. I really, really like to make back my expense by selling cuttings of plants, especially high value plants. I'll try to sell a cutting as soon as I can to, in my mind, justify spending so much on a plant. And I just haven't been able to do that with this one. So she'll just be something I can look at longingly in the corner there. And I do appreciate the plant. It is a beautiful plant. What do you guys think? Are these still in vogue, or are we over them? I'll show you this plant next since I just knocked it down. This is another complex hybrid. Look at that shine. Look at the velvet there. And it is slightly variegated. It's this section right here that's like a slightly lighter color of green. That's not the shine of the velvet. That is a small area of variegation, which was really cool and unexpected. This is a green hues hybrid. I'm just going to read the tag. Tazula Anthurium red crystallinum by a hybrid of Tazula AOS dark form by A plus papillilanimum. Here's the tag. And it's been a fun plant to watch. I think I don't typically buy seedlings because I can't quite justify spending money on a plant without knowing what it's going to look like. But I did kind of roll the dice with this because all of her mother plants are outstanding. And I looked at the mother plants of this cross and I was like, hey, any version of those two, I think is going to turn out really nice. And it really is. And the blister variegation was just a pleasant surprise. It started out, which leaf did I first get variegation on? It started on this leaf, which I don't think the camera will pick up. It started out as a very like speckled variegation that it looked like spider mite damage, but it wasn't. And then the next leaf, we got a little bit more of that, a suggestion of blister variegation closer to the sinus there. Not sure if you're able to see. And then this was the leaf that came after that assured me I was not having a pest problem, because the way that the texture and the velvet is responding to my ring light is amazing. And then it just, you know, with that little streak of like that lighter green variegation, it just assured me I wasn't having a pest problem, but that this plant is just a little special, because that's just so cool. This here is an interesting little fellow. I purchased a plant. It was a self-pollination of something called Anthurium Bigfoot. But mine, like I was mentioning, when you self-pollinate something, especially when that mother plant is already a complex hybrid to begin with, you have no idea what genetic characteristics are hidden in that DNA that are going to present themselves in a seedling. And with my seedling, it's got a completely closed sinus, like a forgetty eye. So I don't really know what to tell you. Here's an emergent on it, beautiful kind of pinkish purple color. I tried really hard to make this a thing. I took a cutting, I like listed it as, you know, look at how unique this is. It's got a closed sinus. It looks nothing like the other ones. Nobody cared. I could not sell the cutting I took for the life of me. So eventually I just repotted it back with the mother plant just to make a bushier little specimen. I think that this guy's really cute. He kind of grows all over the place. Maybe that's just because I do have two plants in the pot. But here's my Anthurium Bigfoot with a closed sinus. That is not what I needed today. Luckily, this sounds awful. Luckily, it was just a scindapsus. I was trying to get out this to show you. This is philodendron Whipple Way. And oh my goodness, I need to stop giving you guys backstories, but apparently there's a real Whipple way and a fake Whipple way, but I made sure to get the real one from a very reputable seller, and you can clearly tell that this is the real thing. It's got that color change that Kaylee Ellen talks about. The leaves start out really light and minty, with a really beautiful pink blush on the back, and then over time they fade down to green. It's gorgeous. It's doing really well in my care. I just wanted to show you that, and now I think I have to clean up my mess. Look at this. Who asked for that? Look at all this leca. But I will tell you, that is like the plus side of having these tile floors and of having an entire room dedicated to the plants. Because if I spill an entire plant potted in leca and we've got nutrient water and leca everywhere, nobody really cares. And I'll just clean it up in my own time. I can easily keep the kids out of here. I'm going to be right back. All right, I have 2 pieces of philodendron sodwari true form to show you, but one of them is kind of staked up and I can't move it. Here is the top cutting I took, and the reason I actually took a cutting is because I'm pretty sure this thing became variegated. Tell me what you think. Check it out. Here's the first leaf. It's got this really beautiful speckly pattern, and then with the second leaf we kind of ended up having some more of a chunky presentation. It is a little bit hard to see just because of the nature of philodendron sodwari. It is kind of mottled. But there are some areas here that are just like a random light green that came out of nowhere. And so I did take a top cutting to see if I could preserve the variegation. And then, oh honey, careful. And then this leaf, see, I wasn't quite paying attention when I took the cutting, and I did not realize that this leaf was trying to come out. So it did not really come out the best. Just due to having been cut as it was unfurling. But this one as well, this one as well does show some lime green variegation also. So we'll see what happens with this guy. I'm looking forward to just, watching it happen. I don't think it's viral or pest because the leaves are perfectly intact. They haven't been like morphed. They're not growing in odd shapes. They look perfectly fine. They just have these extra specks and extra colors. So that's pretty cool. Mama, yeah, baby, go watch your bloomy, please. Here is Anthurium Black Widow by Michelle. And I searched a long time for the right version of this cross. I think there are a lot of nice plants out there, but very few of them have the traits and the vein structure that I was looking for. But this one absolutely did, and I think that this newest leaf is just the perfect representation of what I wanted. And it's been growing really well in my care. It's got 4 leaves with me now, and it's just really happy. I mean, look at this. Look at that root, just really chunky, healthy, and white. All of this plant is just doing really well. This is another cross by Green Hues. This is Red Crystal Extras Leary. And funny, actually, the other day, my 3-year-old was in here, and he saw this plant, and he says, "Mom, why did your plant turn black?" And I hadn't realized how dark this thing was until he said that. It really is super, super dark. Look at this. It's lovely, and I will say that I have seen some very outstanding Red Crystal Extras Leary, and I definitely don't think that mine is as amazing as some of the ones that I've seen, but I do really, really like it. And so it's safe to say I'm excited to see what it grows into, but I'm still happy with how it looks now. Here is a small little monstera, Burlemark's Flame. I think that this is a fun plant. I know that we're all kind of hoping to achieve the fenestrations, but I think it still looks really cool at this stage. It's just such a unique shape. Sweetie, no touch. And it's so unlike other plants in my collection. So I'm happy with it. I'm not I guess I'm not pressuring this plant to mature because I think it looks cool like this. And but it is kind of slow. I will say it definitely is a little bit slow. I've heard other people have shared the same experience. But I'm not complaining because it's giving me really happy growth and the leaves are looking beautiful. And so I'm happy to have this plant. All right, now if you follow me on Instagram, you have already seen this plant and you already know how incredible it is. This is the philodendron silver angel that was in last year's, it was either my birthday haul or my plant tour. I imported it as an all green plant, and silver angel to start with is beautiful. But this plant in my care just 2 leaves ago became variegated all on its own. There is no concern that it is sick or anything because these leaves are absolutely pristine. This was the first one to be variegated. This leaf grew after that. And I love that the variegation is so subtle. It's not in your face and it's not high contrast color. It's very, very muted. I just think it is so beautiful. And I'm not trying to be flashy or anything, but I've not ever seen anybody else have a variegated version of this plant. And with it still being such an uncommon philodendron, I think my chances are pretty good that this might be the only variegated one out there, or maybe one of the first. We have a new leaf on the way, and one thing I do love about this plant is all the pink blush undertones, because this new leaf, as it's still in cataphyll or still kind of unfurling, I should say, is super blush pink. I really love that. And I'm excited to see if this one ends up being variegated. Obviously, I can't tell at this stage, and I'm not going to risk trying to open it up, even though it's very hard to be patient. But I can say, although I won't be able to show it to you very well, so you'll just have to take my word for it. But I do see some striping of variegation on this cataphyll sheath right here that the leaf is already, coming out from. And so I think my chances are pretty good. So I feel incredibly lucky to have this variegated plant, but I will say I love the green version so much that I kind of miss having it. Here is a leaf that was propagated from the portion of the stem before it became variegated. So if you've never seen a silver angel, this is essentially what it looks like, except of course minus some of the browning and the crisping on the edge of the leaf. That was just a result of it being propagated and kind of responding to that stress. So I took a couple stem cuttings of the plant prior to where it was genetically variegated, because I was hoping that the propagations would be all green, and then I could have a variegated plant and an all green one. But you guys, I have to show you this, and I'm not even mad. This is the first leaf that's opened up since I took those propagations, and the color on this leaf, I've got to say, is absolutely outstanding. Maybe even better color than my larger mother plant. One thing I have noted about the variegation on this is that it's almost easier to see before the leaf has really fully hardened off, and it does seem to fade somewhat back towards a light green after the leaf has completely hardened. It's just kind of ironic that I wanted to save myself an all green one, but even this propagation, I mean, you can see there's no sign of variegation on this old leaf from the mother plant, but it did give this one. Have you ever had this happen where you take a cutting and then the first leaf is kind of like, it doesn't really count? So this first leaf, since I took the propagation, it is just so beautiful. Let me see how close I can get it to the camera. Look at that. Just had to change my setting a little bit. I am like just speechless. It is so, so beautiful. I do have one more propagation left that I took of the portion of the stem that wasn't variegated. So I'm kind of hoping that propagation does not turn out to be variegated. But at the same time, if it does turn out to be variegated, I told my husband I could sell that one and buy like 10 all green ones. So it's fine. I'm grateful. I feel very blessed that this happened in my care. But I truly, truly do love the all green version so much that I would like to still have at least one that's not variegated. This one is truly beautiful, and you guys, this tour is perfectly timed because this right here is a brand new leaf on my Anthurium RLFS X Dark Phoenix. So it's a hybrid between a pure Papillilanimum and a Pappy cross. And this plant is so beautiful, and look, it's got scale. 1, 2. I'll definitely have to spot treat this one really quick right now. But the plant otherwise is just doing so good. I was really, really pleasantly surprised by how like slender and narrow the leaves were. And I'm thankful that it wasn't just a one-off. All of them have presented a pretty slender shape. This one is a little bit wavy, and I'm not quite sure why. And then here's the newest one that's just really got that pappy look to it. This one also has just that beautiful velvety texture. Just absolutely gorgeous. And the back of the newest leaf is really nice and like purpley maroon. You know, even though a pest like scale is super annoying and does kind of give me the heebie-jeebies, the one thing I don't mind is that they're easy to spot and they don't seem to travel very fast. There have been so many plants where I might have caught scale on like one leaf, but it wasn't anywhere else. I don't really know much about the life cycle of these guys, but they just seem to find a spot and sit there. And so unless you are dealing with an infestation where you have scale that have already reproduced, they're kind of confined. I don't think they can fly and travel from plant to plant. So I've just treated this one as I saw it. I don't feel bad about putting this back on the shelf because it was just such a small number, and they're totally taken care of. They're not anywhere else on this plant. And so just word for the wise, if you didn't know, you can treat it and it's gonna be okay. Now this beautiful plant is my monstera mint from Barry's lineage. Now I don't remember if on my last plant tour I already had a cutting of this plant or if it was something that I hauled I think at the beginning of this year perchance. But funny story is that I actually purchased a single node cutting of this monstera variety, and I really had a hard time with the cutting that I purchased. I waited a long time for that growth point to activate and finally push out a new leaf. And when it did, it had such little variegation. And I waited, but it continued to give me low variegated leaves, and then the roots rotted. It was just a negative experience. I don't know if it was my fault or if it was the plant's fault. But I was just so disappointed that I decided I wanted to buy a replacement while it was still in my care. Like at this point, the plant was still doing fine, but it was just giving me such low variegated leaves. So I bought this one as, I believe maybe it just had these 3 leaves right here. Same lineage, monstera, Barry's jungle mint. And to me, it was important. I know I just did have a spiel about ID and lineage and how it doesn't always matter. This one, it did matter to me because I did not want to end up with an albo that just was looking minty. I specifically wanted this type of variegation where it is a different genetic makeup than an albo monstera. It is like mint only, not albo at all. And I'm really happy with the plant that I received, this replacement, because it just continues to give me beautiful color. I did try to take one cutting and that cutting did not do well. I think I just didn't have it in a good environment. I do hope to cut this one again soon because we'll wait and see what it does, but all of the leaves had some solid green on them. This one, and then this one, and then this one. This is my first full mint leaf, And from what I understand, there's still enough chlorophyll here to sustain the plant. But as far as the aesthetic, I really like having some solid green patches. So we'll see what this one does over time. This is Monstera Berries Jungle Mint. Earlier I mentioned that I did pollinate my Papillilanimum A+ with the pollen from a Dressleri hybrid, and this is the pollen donor. Look at that beautiful velvet sheen. This is a cross between Dressleri and Bevep. I have here Bevep listed first as the mother plant with Dressleri pollen, and I think that this plant is so gorgeous. It's finally started to give me some glow up leaves after a few struggle leaves. This one wasn't that bad. I just didn't really like the shape and the lobes, and then prior to that, just a very small and dull, non-impressive leaf. So this was the most, oh look at that, I see a flower on the way. This was the most recent leaf that it's given me, and I've really loved the shape and the texture and the vein structure of this. And I have a new leaf on the way. And if you're new to anthuriums, you'd be surprised to know that often once you get a plant that is in cataphyll stage, or in other words, mature enough to begin producing flowers, you'll often get a new leaf and a flower at the same time. I found that to be true with so many of my Anthurium, and here we have a new leaf, and I'll see if I can show you the flower that's on the way. If I can just cover up my face a little bit so the camera focuses on the plant, and if you see this little green bulge right here, that's actually a new flower emerging from the petiole of this previously newest leaf. So this might be fun. I don't know what else I have in the greenhouse that might have potential. And as I already mentioned, I kind of try to not go overboard with pollination, but it's always so exciting and rewarding when a plant that, you know, even 2 months ago wasn't really impressing me, and just over the span of a summer, it's really given me some beautiful foliage, and this will actually be the second flower it's given me. So always so much fun. This here is an interesting little guy that's not looking the best right now because it's just come through being propagated. This is a Papillilanimum RLFS F2, and I don't think I'm going to take the time here to explain the terminology on that, but it's a pure Papillilanimum. And I bought it as a seedling, and it had a very, very strange growth pattern. But eventually I just decided enough is enough. I'm kind of tired of dealing with this. It became super leggy. The stem itself became very long. So I cut off the top 2 leaves and I sold the bottom of the plant. Who knows what that piece is doing right now. But after a few months in my greenhouse cabinet, working on growing some roots, we finally have the first new leaf since being cut. I'm not gonna lie to you and say that this plant looks great right now because it doesn't, but I can say with confidence that I think it's got some great potential. You do have that dark velvety foliage, a wide sinus, which is what many people look for in the RLFS Papillilanimum. And so I'm excited to see what this will do now that it can focus on itself, now that it has less growth points to worry about managing. So follow along for updates on this guy. I think it might turn into something really special, but I've had to be very patient and understanding with it. Speaking of being patient and understanding, I am about at the end of my patience with this little drama queen. This is, I mean, don't get me wrong, she's very beautiful. This is my philodendron golden dragon variegated, and this is the one that I ended up keeping. A few months ago, I referenced having 2 of them and deciding to get rid of one. And in hindsight, I think I might have enjoyed the other one better. It had more of a marbled variegation where you had patches of green and white on both sides of the leaves. And at the time, this specimen was not presenting with half moons, but it was much more sectoral. And since then, it has given me the typical half moon problem. Let me see if I can go in order of growth. Let me just double check. So first we had this beautiful leaf, which I think is like almost a half moon completely, except for just the little green on the bottom here did come over onto the white side. And then it gave me this, which is like 98% white with a little bit of green. Now I will say about this plant that even when you get white leaves, on philodendron, golden dragon variegated, they can really hang on for a long time because I'm only just now getting this crispy area, and honestly this happened months and months ago. After this leaf that was basically all white, I got, let me just correct myself, yes, I got an all green leaf. I don't think there's even a single speck of variegation on this. There seems to be a little bit of streaking happening at the top. I don't even think that's variegation. I think that's more of like a chlorosis kind of thing. Interestingly enough though, if you were to look at the back side of the leaf, there's a little white patch on the back. After this all green leaf, which followed an almost all white leaf, I did have a completely all white leaf that has shriveled up and died, and I cut it off. And after that all white leaf, I got a half moon again. So far we had half moon, almost all white, all green, all white, half moon. And wouldn't you know that after this half moon, I have my most recent leaf all white. And unfortunately, after this one is when I lost my patience because it gave me another 100% white leaf. The struggle I'm having with this one is that if I look closely at the location of these lower growth points, they're not really placed where I would want them to be. The highest up growth point, let me see how close I can get. The growth point closest to the top is kind of right there on that 50-50 mark. So fingers crossed that whatever comes out of this growth point will have kind of a blend between the white and the green traits. But then if I turn the plant to the other growth point that has activated, it's in the completely all white territory. I'm tempted to kind of just like botch this little growth point so it doesn't even waste the plant's energy. But I just don't know if that would be, I mean, what if? Plants can surprise you, and I don't know so much about the genetics of golden dragon. I just don't know what to expect of this plant. So fingers crossed that at least this uppermost growth point will give me some nice variegation, because if not, I'm really out of luck. I've looked at my other growth points here on the stem and where they're located. Oh, look at that. What a little surprise. If you look right there's another wee little growth point, and it seems to be close to that 50-50 side. But other growth points located further down the plant are on all green patches. And I can't remember what's deep down here in this leca. I don't remember how many nodes I have. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope I don't have to completely repot and prop and chop. Because I'm happy with how this looks. And this looks really cute for a picture. But it has kind of been a little bit of a headache. So speaking of patience and tolerance, I am starting to lose my patience with this one. All right, we are down to the bottom shelf in here. And then after that, we just have my plant cabinet, the things sitting on top of that, and my large philodendrons that are here on the floor. So come with me, let's just get low and let's talk about what's on the bottom shelf. So here's a little look at my bottom shelf, and I think we'll start right over here with Philodendron Splendid. Of course, I've propped and chopped it a few times, started over from the head cutting, and it's doing really well. It's finally starting to attach onto the plank here, and I think that the foliage is just looking beautiful, exactly what you would hope for from a Philodendron Splendid. Right next door, I have a complex Anthurium hybrid. This was sold to me under the nickname Green Goblin. It's doing okay. I think it's been a little bit neglected, but I do really appreciate it for what it is. Now, my monstera albo got to a point where I was ready to kind of chop it down and start over. It was reaching the top of the plank that it was growing up, looking really nice, but when it was time to move everything downstairs, I didn't want to have to deal with reacclimating such a large plant to a new space, and I just thought it would be simpler to take cuttings, sell the rest of them, and go from there. But my goodness, I really had forgotten how long it takes to grow Monstera albo from a cutting, because we are like 5 months, 6 months later, and I still am yet to get any new leaves from these cuttings. This might be because I chose to place the plant in such a large pot, and that's because I was really hoping that it would establish a root system that was large and strong enough to support a one day very big and large plant. But I think the reason my growth has been so slow is because the plant is expending its energy in the root growth to kind of fill up this large void. But thankfully, I do have activity on the growth points for both of the mid cuttings. And then a deal did appear that was just too good to pass up. And I did buy a cutting online just to add into this pot and make it a little bit more full. Hopefully by the time I'm releasing my 2025 plant tour, my Monstera albo will be a thing of beauty once again. Right over here is my Monstera cereana, and I can't tell you because I don't remember if this is the Mexican form or the Brazilian form. I didn't really think that there were two. I thought it was all the same thing, but there's been much discussion lately and people are calling things this or that. I just know that I bought this as Monstera cereana. It's a lot like a deliciosa, except the fenestrations are a little bit more extreme and they present a little bit earlier. So I'm really happy with the fenestrations on this leaf. But then the one that came out right after, it had nothing. So I'm not sure if maybe I just didn't feed it enough during that time. But anyways, it's a very cute plant and I'm excited to see what it grows into. Kind of tucked away back here, if I can just pull it out gently, because we've had a few spills today. This is my Monstera deliciosa white monster from Kunzo. And this, I'm excited to share, is not a TC plant. This is a vegetative stem cutting plant. I think it does make a difference. I'm still learning the characteristics of this plant. The leaf that grew before this was a lot more white. And then this, we're introducing more green, and then more green, and then more green, and now it seems to be almost all green. So I think that experience is the best way to learn something and figure out how it behaves. So we'll see, but I have heard that this plant tends to throw the white leaves after a recent cutting. I did take a cutting of this. The cutting was from the bottom of the plant, and then I sold that cutting. This, so to speak, would have been the head cutting, and I didn't see a difference in the color of the newest leaf. It was still green. So maybe this concept is more of when you have new growth from a growth point, that tends to start out white, and then eventually it will become green as the plant continues growing more and more leaves. So that's a little bit confusing because, you know, we always want to grow plants into maturity, but if it is basically base cuttings or mid cuttings that are producing the wider variegation, it kind of seems like it would take a very long time to achieve a mature plant that had a lot of white. I am inspired by the challenge. I don't plan on letting this go. I kind of knew that when I bought this, it was going to be an interesting ride, and I'm really having fun with it. I think that in theory, if I were to, let's say, grow this piece a lot larger and a lot more mature, then I could take some mid cuttings of a thick stem, and from there, theoretically, I would get new growth that had a lot of white but was also mature in size. And you guys, I hate to even like keep saying it because it almost embarrasses me, but there's more scale down here. Down here on this bottom shelf, I'm seeing a lot of scale happening. And so we're gonna be cutting off some leaves, but I thought I would just take this as an opportunity because if you're here, it's because you love plants, but also maybe you can afford to learn. And so I'm going to very humbly show you my scale. So this is where I just noticed it, and let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Right here, all of these are scales. and it's on the petiole of this white monster. So I think I'll just scrape these off. Luckily, these don't seem to be on the foliage at all, just the petioles. It's very interesting the way that that pest behaves. I find that on Anthurium and on very pillowy philodendron, they're going to be found in the veins or in any little, how do you put this, like a valley of the leaf. But on a monstera, which seems to have a very flat surface, I guess the only place they can find comfort is on the petiole. And just on the next shelf over, I have some very pillowy philodendrons. And I have just, you know, here seen a lot of scale on that one. So let me show you what it looks like so that you can learn. All right, so it is kind of hard to discern from just like sphagnum moss debris. But basically, they are the scales. I don't really want to touch them because they give me the heebies. But all of these brown little ovals, and if you see them really organized, like in a little, this is what I mean by a valley, such a pillowy plant, but in this little valley, they like to hide in there. It doesn't seem to be that bad on that philodendron. I think I could probably spot treat it. But honestly, I think in this case with the philodendron, I'm just gonna remove that entire leaf because it's a very large and bushy plant and I don't really think it's gonna miss one leaf and I don't really think I'm gonna miss it either. So also on the shelf, scale plant we will get to because it's actually the third one down. Here is plant number 1 and let me see if I can bring her out to center. This is my philodendron gloriosum, and I'm a little bit nervous to look too close because I really don't want there to be scale on this one. She's doing absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, we have some grow light burn here at the top, but that's just the nature of growing big plants. And you guys, I'm so excited to show you what's going on down here. This is quite a moment for me. This is the very first philodendron flower that has ever grown in my care. I don't plan on doing anything with it because I know that pollinating philodendron is extremely hard and I don't have any other philodendron flowers happening. I just am really excited and impressed that this philodendron did choose to flower in my care. This gloriosum specifically is really so beautiful. It's kind of a shame that some of her prettiest leaves are facing the back. Oh, forget it. I'm gonna get it out and show it to you. First I cut the scale leaf off, then I sanitize my hands, then I pick up the gloriosum. I will get to this plant more later, but I'll show you this pretty leaf since I just cut it off. Regardless of the scales on this, look at how gorgeous this leaf is. This is Philodendron SP Columbia Platinum. It is so pretty, and it's really just a shame that this leaf kind of had scale and a little bit too much for me to want to deal with, because I'm just going to chuck this leaf in the trash right now as I nervously look anywhere else for pests. Always, when you're dealing with pest problems, sanitize your hands before touching a pest-free plant, because even though we don't think we're touching these little creepy insects, they can get very small and they could transfer. You could be the one transferring them around your greenhouse. All right, you guys, I couldn't resist because she does not get the spotlight ever. She's always just tucked away in her little corner. But let's take her out and admire her. Look at this gloriosum. Oh my goodness. She's kind of big. Here's the newest leaf. And what I love about my specific specimen, I haven't seen this in too many others, but I'm not saying it's, you know, completely rare. But the veins on mine have a very soft pink undertone when they're brand new and when the leaf is kind of just come out. Older leaves, the veins definitely harden down to just more of a pure white, like in this one here. But wow, I wonder, because I kind of want to take a screenshot of this. Let me see if I can get all the leaves, or at least most of them, in one frame. Wow, how pretty is she? And again, here's, oof, got my hair. Trying to show you another look at that flower. Let me just hoist this upon my shoulder. and see if my thing will focus. Beautiful plant. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It's funny how the value of these things really can drop so fast, you know, just in a span of a few years. Oh, here's another promising angle. When I bought this plant, I paid $200, and now you can't really give them away. But I think anybody who loves plants can still appreciate a good gloriosum. And I think that this is definitely a good one. And I might even have to leave it out tonight, because in the morning I am tempted. Oh, here it is. Look at that. In the morning, I am quite tempted to try to get a nice photo of her all by herself by my kitchen window where I get the best natural light. But I don't think I'm going to pick up quite anything else down there because I don't love them as much. So here's the space where the gloriosum was. Right beside her is a Dean McDowell that's doing very well, aside from a few grow light burns. And then number 3 is the Columbia Platinum SP. I actually recently just cut the head off of that plant because it was just really overwhelming me and it was growing too big and too fast. But I have down there a new growth point that's activated, and here's that newest leaf. It's just over here on the shelf, and regardless of how much space you have, it's so hard to make enough room for some of these large pillowy philodendron. And this bottom shelf of plants, it's just kind of like everybody goes there, everybody gets really crowded. We get a lot of grow light burn, we get a lot of crumpled leaves because they didn't really have room to open up, but I keep holding on to them. I don't want to get rid of them for space issues because they're happy here, and I can't help but hope that one day I might have an actual full-fledged greenhouse where these babies can really grow big and thrive. And over here is my philodendron majestic working on a new leaf after, my goodness, I've propped and chopped this one so many times, as have I with this lovely philodendron glorious. With many of my philodendrons, we do a chop and prop all the time, just keep the head cutting so that I can continue aiming for maturity in the plant. And this one, really neat. Let me see if I can find where it started. Right about, oh wow, it's farther down than I thought. Right here, my plant, just out of the blue, went from being 1 vine to being 2. I had like a double caterpillar. Maybe I'll have a picture of it. I can throw it in. But now I've just got like 2 heads on this plant, and it's doing really well, thriving. It is even like clinging on to the plank. And I even had just a little splash of variegation right here. That was really fun while it lasted. Just one more segment left to go, you guys, and part 3 has some of my favorites. Go ahead and watch.